Hey everyone, this is Ryder from Skip. I hope you're doing well. It's Tuesday, September 29th. In the afternoon, I have a quick video update because there have been so many questions about the new House bill, the $2.2 trillion HEROES Act update, specifically when it comes to small businesses and who would be eligible. So I wanted to take a minute to set the record straight. I have spent a lot of today so far and last night reading through large sections of this 2,000 plus page bill, and there have been a lot of questions. The two most important ones are, for a PPP second round, who would be eligible, what types of businesses, and what would your revenue have to look like? The second, what's in here for the EIDL grants, if anything? I'm going to answer both of those because we've had dozens of comments on that. Shout out to everyone who's commented and asked these, especially Jeff, who brought up this PPP issue and how it's been incorrectly covered by other YouTubers today. So I'm going to start there with the PPP funding, who would be eligible in a second round of PPP funding. Okay, here's the section, page 562, Division E, Small Business Provisions. So first, there's a lot of money for a second round of PPP funding. I don't think the pot is the issue here because there's almost $200 billion from the first go around still left in the pot. So that's not the issue. Really what people are concerned about is, will their business qualify? And again, as I mentioned in my earlier video today, the purpose of a PPP round 2 is really to help the businesses that have drastically struggled, such as restaurants, travel-related businesses, live venue operators, those types of businesses. Now, there are some minor changes to covered period and language in there. I'm not going to get into that nitty-gritty. As we all know, one thing we can rely on is changes to the rules. The covered period and those rules and who's exempt changed quite a bit in the first go-around. Okay, so who's eligible? Supplemental covered loans for certain business concerns. So here we go. The term smaller concern means an eligible recipient that, first, has not more than 200 employees, number one. Second, operates under a sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor or as an individual, self-employed individual. So basically, A, B, C, if you're a business less than 200 employees, sole proprietorship, independent contractor, or eligible self-employed individual, that's fair game. The term significant loss in revenue, what does that mean? Okay. Basically, I'm going to read it to you first, then I'm going to translate it. The gross receipts of the eligible recipient during the first, second, or third calendar quarter of 2020 are less than 25% of the gross receipts of the eligible recipient during the same calendar quarter in 2019. Okay, so if in 2019, let's take Q2, so that would be April, May, June of 2019. If you grossed $100,000 across those 3 months, Q2 2019, you would have had to have grossed less than $25,000 in the same period this year. That's less than 25%, not 25% less. So obviously that's going to mean that a huge chunk, if this gets passed, of people who took PPP rounds the first go around will not be eligible for a second round. And that is the point of the program. Now, we may argue if that's fair or not. Shouldn't it be closer to 50% or upwards of 75%? Because bottom line is businesses are still struggling. And if you've had half your revenue lost, that's still a major impact. So again, that's a calculation you'd need to think about for your business. You know, for Q2, that's the lowest point for most businesses here. Again, that's April, May, June this year. What was your gross revenue? And was that 25%, less than 25% of what it was in 2020 during that same period? So you keep that in mind. Again, all of this is wait and see. The House is going to vote on this on Friday, but before you get your hopes up, A, that this passes, and B, that you'd be eligible, you need to keep that in mind. And there's a lot more text here, but that's the big piece. Feel free to read further and point out anything that I missed. Now, the loan amounts are similar to the first go round, 2.5 times monthly salary, and there's a maximum amount in this as well, which would be $2 million. Here we go on page 576. And so far in reading this multiple times, and it's a lot, I haven't seen any exceptions to that. One thing we know is that the SBA administrator has a lot of authority to make rules, and there is something at the end here that says the administrator can make changes to the rules within 2 weeks of this being passed. Okay, let's jump to EIDL news because that is some good news as well. Section 403, modifications to emergency EIDL advances. And first, it references the CARES Act section, which authorized the EIDL emergency advances. One of the things it emphasizes here is data transparency, and there's more rigor here in putting the burden on the SBA to actually put forth with how many advances have actually been approved and given out, how many people haven't waited, and how many people have applied. Again, the SBA did not do that. They never showed the total number of people who applied for EIDL advances. We kind of got ballpark numbers, but not exact numbers on how many people were approved and then the main denial reasons. One of the other things in here which is interesting is the SBA has to do more if you have been denied for various reasons an EIDL advance or loan. The SBA has more burden to explain to you why you were denied and review any resubmission that you make. But here's the good news at the top. SBA emergency EIDL grants for an additional amount of emergency EIDL grants, $50 billion to remain available until expended to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus domestically or internationally. I believe in the first CARES Act, it was $20 billion in this pot. So this is significantly more than that. Now it is provided that $40 billion of this shall be for carrying out subsection I of such section 1110 in the CARES Act. Okay, we looked at section 1110 in the CARES Act just to refresh our memories, because this was 6 months ago now that this was passed, by the way. March 27th, this was signed into law. Again, here's section 1110 in the CARES Act right here, and it's similar to what we're all familiar with now. Now, this is interesting because I hadn't seen this before, that the amount of an advance provided under this subsection in the CARES Act shall not be more than $10,000. So for months, we've been talking about our right to $10,000, which I still believe is true. And of course, that's why we've been spending countless hours writing senators across the country for S4227. However, when I take a look at this again, I see that they don't say everyone will get the full $10,000. They just say not more than $10,000. So very interesting. And I've looked throughout this document to see if there was other reference to the right to the full $10,000. Anyway, it's a moot point because the SBA made their rules, and of course we're still pushing for them to change the rules. But the way I take this section from the CARES Act and match it with the new HEROES Act text, this doesn't mean that people will be eligible for the full $10,000, but it means that they will be processing more. So if you are still in the queue, and according to our SCIP tracker, and we've helped nearly 100,000 people, if not more by now, track their EIDL advances and loans, if you're still waiting, you would be able to get an advance and, of course, eligible for a loan. And by the way, there is other text in here that talks about the SBA's ability to set the interest rate, which makes it seem as though there is some thinking, well, what if we made these EIDL loans have a lower interest rate or zero interest rate? So there's text in here that talks about making this easier, and bottom line, this is positive for small businesses. I think the PPP rules are a bit stricter. That 25% of 2019's revenue is a pretty high bar for a lot of businesses. It basically means you had to have your business shut down. So I do agree that those businesses should be helped first. I think businesses that have 50% of the revenue or 75% of the revenue should also be helped as well. But I get that there's an order of operations here. But this is a good start. The main goal is to get this passed. Again, if we find anything else important in this bill that we should explain, we will. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting our channel and leaving comments, because that inspires us to dive deeper all the time and inspires me to keep doing these so we can donate all of our YouTube revenue back to you coming this Friday when we announce the winners for our $500 grants. Stay well, stay healthy, and have a great rest of your day.